Here we go. Welcome to the Plastic EP and Robin Show. How are you, Robin?
I'm doing well. How are you? Looking good, Plastic.
Yeah, and you're looking groovy. How was your week?
Week was pretty good, you know.
Okay, I've got a special guest. Now, don't worry about Austin Powers. This guy lived the life of the swinging 60s. It's our friend, Leslie Cavendish. Here he is. Welcome, Leslie.
Hello, Plastic EP and Robin. Hi.
Hi, Leslie. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you. Thank you.
Good to talk to you.
So happy to have you.
I'm very happy to be here. I haven't seen Plastic at least for 2 hours.
Hey, Leslie's coming in from swinging London. Hasn't been swinging since the 60s. But let me tell you, that must have been a groovy time, the swinging 60s, Leslie.
It was a time that you didn't realise it was swinging. It was only until later in history that you said you think it was swinging, but it was a normal time. It was a time for the only good thing about it was you watched change happened, and that was the great thing. You know.
I've got to ask you used to work for the big salon there in London. What was the name of the salon again before you went to Apple?
Vidal Sassoon.
Thank you for mentioning that. Now, I want to ask you about Robin's hair, because this is pre-pandemic or pandemic at the moment. If it was the swinging 60s,
yes,
and you had to cut Robin's hair.
Let's say this first, Leslie. I'm a little bit embarrassed because we're in the middle of a pandemic, and I haven't been to a hair salon since February, so I have cut my own hair. So I know I've made mistakes.
Well, actually, it doesn't look too bad. How have you got your hair? Your hair must have been since February, so what are we talking about? So your hair was like a bob length, yeah? Maybe chin length, you let it grow?
That's what I should do. I should have chin like this.
Well, yeah, that's a nice start, you know, but it doesn't look too bad anyway. You just called the layer look.
So I should get rid of the length. I'm 52 years old, so maybe it's time for the length to go. What age do you think length on women?
It's not a matter of length, you know. Women like length, but the hair you should cut the hair to suit the face. Now, may I say, I've never met you before, Rob. You've got a nice face, so why you can let your hair a bit shorter. It's nice. You know, do you feel comfortable with it? Do you like it long?
I've had it long for a long time. I only had short hair once. I've never had the look, and I always point the wrong way, that Plastic is sporting right now, but I'm sure you recognize Plastic's haircut.
I love it. You know, I've told him, I've nurtured him through this whole process, from no hair to this hair, and we finally getting to the Vidal Sassoon one-sided cut. It's looking very chic. The ears, as you can see, it's growing nicely, and the colour is natural, which is one of the nicest things about Plastic's hair. It's great.
I think I look like Fred Flintstone, actually. But I'm going to ask you, which Beatle do I look like? In 1964, which one do you reckon I'm closest to my hair?
The Yellow Submarine Beatle. Yeah. You look like you've been underwater.
Which Beatle do I look like?
Well,
the hair.
You've got all four. It's so difficult to sort of distinguish. George, Paul, or Ringo, EP. I don't know.
Do I look more like Ringo?
Do you look like Ringo? Yeah, you can look like Ringo.
Does the hair look like Ringo?
Turn to the side a bit. Oh, that's Paul. Now the other side is, now Mr. Nobody. George, yeah, George. Put your hair forward. There's a bit of John. Yeah, there you go. Look at it. Just shake your head. Yeah.
So how did you come up with the Beatles signature style? Because you actually, I mean, if I think about it, you really defined an era with that haircut. The haircut.
Unfortunately, yeah. Actually, it wasn't me that came up with that haircut. It was Astrid Kircher that was going out with Stu Sutcliffe in Hamburg. You know, she was a photographer and she was part of it. And she was very sort of advanced in her ways regarding, being a photographer. And when the guys went to Paris, they used to have, rockers' hair, greased back hair and leather. They looked the part, which was great, especially Pete Best. Pete Best had fantastic hair, but his hair was curly. Could be another good reason why he was dropped from the Beatles. There are other rumours, but he certainly couldn't have had the hair like plastic, so he missed out on that one. But yeah, she sort of did that hair, took away the sort of grease and combed the hair forward, and it was really more for her. And then they just sort of made sure that it always looked shiny. Brian Epstein was the one that sort of put the polish to everything, basically. He made sure that the right shoes, the right suits, the hair was clean, and he was immaculate anyway. If you look at any picture of Brian Epstein, he was married.
Leslie, can I ask you?
Yeah.
What year did you cut one of the Beatles' hair? Who was the first Beatle you cut his hair, and what year was it?
So the first time I cut was Paul McCartney in September '66. It was 3 weeks after 2 weeks after the final concert in Candlestick Park. So I literally, he had sort of hung up his guitar and undid his tie, and he was at home literally 2 weeks after that show. So that's the first time I cut it, and I cut it at his house. There was a big difference than coming into the salon or going to his house. So that was the first one.
So I have a question for you. So when you cut hair falls on the ground.
Yeah.
Did you ever save any of it?
No, never. Now I knew that that was what people would want me to do, or if I was greedy, I could have taken lots of hair. I got offered lots of money for a Beatle impresario in America, a parasite basically. When the Beatles had toured America, they used to go in the swimming pool and used to stay in the hotel. So the guy, in his wisdom, cut up the sheets in squares and sold sheet. He bottled the water, Beatle water. He offered me actually at the time the equivalent of $100,000 if I could give him Beatle hair in '67. It sounds terrible, I sound like a goody-goody, but I actually put the phone down on him. And I didn't want to do that. When you get an opportunity, you become a Beatle fan, you end up cutting, I went to see them very first time in '63 by fluke. And 4 years later, 5 years later, I'm cutting their hair. And, I've never believed it. So, why? Yeah, now you look at it and think, should I, shouldn't I? But no, I didn't want to. And also as well, you become a part of, you get trusted. You become part of that inner circle. So, yeah, why not? I enjoyed it. And it was nice. It was nice to get the trust of the Beatles and their entourage. So.
Once you get their trust, you're in a circle, they trust you. You can't do that. They won't put up with people that go against in the circle. This man was on the Magical Mystery Tour bus and in the movie and at the front of the fish shop with the Beatles alongside him, sitting on the dining table with Paul McCartney. This man is a legend. And I just got to say, Robin, just watch this. This is his book, The Cutting Edge by Leslie Cavendish, and I want everyone to go out and buy it because the stories inside it are unbelievable. But also, you got a Spanish version too, haven't you, Leslie?
I have indeed got a Spanish version.
And how do they get the books now? Tell us where the books are.
Well, they get the books through, our good friend David Bedford. We've got the Beatles Story book. Beatles Story book, or basically come get to me on Messenger, Facebook, or go to www.beatleshairdresser.com, and I'll only be too happy to sign it, send it, ask me questions. I don't mind. I've been doing a lot of Q&As lately from people. I'm there.
I noticed on your website, I was looking at it earlier, that you do tours also.
I do. Well, yeah, I was, but I don't sort of do it the whole time. There's certain tours that you can go anywhere in the world. You come to London, you can go on a Beatle tour. There's plenty of really good guides out there. These guides will give you the complete history, the dates, how many people turned up at a gig, you know, when they did this, that. I'm not like that. You know, you want to come on a tour with me, and I wouldn't do any more than 5. I'll take you on a personal tour. I'll tell you certain stories. So, for instance, you go on a Beatle tour here, and you'll go to, let's say, Savile Row. You're going to the Apple headquarters buildings. So everyone goes there because they know there was the rooftop concert, and they'll stand outside, and they'll point up at the ceiling, and they go, there, the Beatles did the gig there, and whatever. Come with me, and I'll tell you what it was like inside, because I was inside that building on that day. So I'll give a personal view, and I don't want it to sort of be like a tape, you know, every minute. So I don't do it that often, but if they do, they can contact me, and yeah, we go around in a nice exclusive VIP car with a chauffeur, and it's a luxury tour with luxury stories that go with it. So yeah,
so we go from the Magical Mystery Tour to the luxury tour now. And also, I got to say, do you take them to the spot where the Magical Mystery Tour bus pulled up and you're waiting outside with Paul and everybody to get in the bus? Do you show them the spot?
I do. That's Allsop Place opposite Madame Tussauds in London. A really funny thing happened, and this was happened to me last week. There's a picture of me in the newspaper talking in a canteen with McCartney and myself. So basically what happened, I got to this place, Allsop Place, at about 8:30 in the morning. It was a cold day, and the first thing I saw was McCartney sitting on the pavement, leaning against the rails, talking to one of the other guys in the film, who I didn't even know what he was going to do in the film, but he was there. And people were walking by, you know, early morning office people, and, you know, you wouldn't expect to see a Beatle sitting on the floor in 1967. You'd walk by and think, is that really him? Is it really him? And then they would stop, and then they would go, oh, it is him. And he was very polite. He did a few autographs, but mostly people didn't believe that that was actually happening, you know. We were waiting for the bus, and the bus doesn't turn up. So he sort of disappeared for a bit. But as he stood up, we're waiting, and he just said to me, do you want a cup of tea? Because opposite there is London Transport, you know, the underground train drivers' cafe, which they've been on the trains in the early morning shift, and they're there for their breakfast. And we walked in there into a cafe. Can you imagine seeing these guys who come back from an early morning shift? And McCartney walks in. And this is really high. This is 67, you know. And we sat there, and there's a lovely picture of me and McCartney and the waitress giving us a cup of tea. So, yeah, it was quite an interesting first day.
I've got to ask you about when you were cutting hair. Was it Britt Eklund that came in with her brother? Who was it?
Came in with a lovely brother, Carl. Lovely Carl. His name was Carl. Yeah, she came in. I was at Vidal's at the time. The guy had fantastic hair, just like yours, Plastic, but he had, you know, Swedish blonde hair, really thick. And she actually said to me, can you cut my brother's hair Beatles style? So I've got a picture somewhere. I think you've seen it.
I've seen it.
Me, that's Sassoon's sort of in the mirror, cutting, you know, fun, doing his hair there and everything. She's standing next to me there. Yeah, you get a lot of people, you know, it's like, you know, if Robin came in, she wanted to have her hair done, you would look at someone like Mary Quant, or you look at someone like Nancy Kwan, you know, these actresses that had these fantastic hair that Vidal shaped into this, you know, into this perfect cut. So everyone was sort of copying everyone else. Then you had Twiggy. Then people wanted their hair looking like Twiggy, right. You know. But then you asked before, Robin, you know, how should one have their hair? When I say you have to feel comfortable, but there's lots. We had lots of women that come into the shop, into the salon, I should say shop, into the salon there, and they would want, let's say, a Mary Quant, and they would have a face 3 times as big as, you know, and you just can't do it. So you have to improvise, and you have to be discreet and say why they can't have it. But, you know.
Do you still cut hair, Leslie?
Yeah, I've been known to cut a few hair. I cut a few of my friends' hair. I've cut a few hair for TV interviews while the interviewer is interviewing me. We did that in New York last year for Sky TV. A documentary is making, and he suggested, could I cut his hair? So he's he can interview me from the mirror. And I was cutting his hair. Yeah, I loved it. Still like it.
Did you get a lot of Beatles haircut requests over the years to copy, I would imagine?
I did. I tell you, yeah, I did. I used to do this. Part of my luxury tour was, the finale was, I would cut your hair. And everything was, I mean, I got a friend of mine who's got a salon in St John's Wood, nice part of London. In fact, around the corner from where Paul McCartney lives, and he actually does Nancy, Paul's hair, wife's hair. And I used to use his salon. So I used to go on the tour, and then we'd go to the salon, and then we would talk, and I'd cut their hair. I got a request from somebody, from this lady, saying it was her husband's 60th birthday. So I went round to their house, and we were talking. He just wanted to have his hair cut. He didn't want the tour. He wanted me to tell stories. And first thing I do when I see people, I look at their hair and I weigh it up. And I think, you know, if I had to do it, how would I do it? And this guy had the most magnificent head of hair. It was so thick. It was down to his shoulders. And I'm saying to myself, okay, I can tell him these stories, and I reckon I could probably cut his hair in about 15 minutes because he only want the ends trimmed, and I can just cut the ends, whatever. And after about 45 minutes, I said to him, right, I think it's now time to cut your hair. And he went, okay. And he sat down, and I'm really relaxed and cool. And he's got the mirror there. And I said to him, which was a mistake, how would you like your hair? And he had his hair literally, I told him, really down here. He said, I want it like John Lennon's and Sgt. Pepper. And I suddenly got a sweat come over me. I thought, oh my God, I know that haircut. And that's not a quick trim. That's a serious, concentrate haircut. And I did it without a mirror. And his wife kept knocking on the door, said, are you ready, darling? Are you ready? And I was going, no, he's not ready yet. I'll tell you when he's ready. And I'm really sweating, you know. And this was a serious haircut, from long to short. Finally, after about 40 minutes there, and I couldn't really talk to him because I'm thinking I shouldn't have got involved in this. This is all too much. And she came in, and I thought, what's she going to say? If she says the wrong thing, that's it. And she opened the door, and he said, ready, darling? And she opened the door, and he looked around, and she went, you look like John Lennon. Oh, great, let's get out of here. Yeah, so I stopped doing haircuts on tours because I don't want to go through that whole scene.
I can understand that. I can definitely. I know, and I really appreciate, I have to say, I was kind of kidding about the hair. I knew, you are a trustworthy guy. And, so I'm curious if there's a story that you might be willing to share. Obviously, keeping the trust and faith, but like a fun little story of something that happened in the salon or in a house that
I can tell you a funny story that happened in the salon when I was a 15-year-old junior, fresh from school, and we had a lady, she was the Marilyn Monroe of English film, lovely lady called Diana Dawes. Mm-hmm. She had an hourglass figure, bleached blonde hair, and she always had a naughty smile, always did something naughty. And I was the assistant to the guy who used to do her hair. And she used to tease me a lot, give me that little look there. And she used to have wild parties down in the countryside. You used to read about it in the newspapers. Her husband at the time was a guy that you had to watch, but he was a nice guy. And she said to me, when I used to wash her hair, and she used to hear all about these parties, and I used to say, well, can I come? And she said, Leslie, I'll tell you when you're ready. And I said, great. So, okay. And every time I'd wash her hair, I used to say to her for a joke, am I ready? And she used to say, I'll tell you when you're ready. She said, I'm coming in next week with somebody that you may like. And I went, okay, fine. And then we were in the basement of a really beautiful chic salon in Grosvenor House, just off Park Lane at Sassoon's. And the next thing I could see, Diana Dawes walk down the stairs, And before I could see this face, I saw this body walk in, and it was Jane Mansfield. She brought Jane Mansfield down to have a hair done. And, you know, every guy, she can't help but she walked in like she was on a catwalk with the tightest, you know, hourglass figure, blonde hair. She looked like Jane Mansfield. And she sat down, and the stylist said, right, Miss Mansfield, I think you need your hair bleached. Would you like blonde? Would you like to go upstairs? So he said, yeah. So he said, Leslie, would you take Miss Mansfield upstairs in the lift to the tinting room? And I went so red because when we had a lift there, which was the tiniest lift in the world. And I stood in the middle of Jane Mansfield and Diana Dawes. Wow. And they were giggling at me and they were laughing at me. And it was like, oh my God, I could go deaf. This is absolutely amazing. It was just a funny story. That was a nice little thing that happened at the dance, innocently.
What's your favorite Beatles moment? A little moment that you shared cutting hair.
On the hair was actually cutting McCartney's hair in the very early days, and his girlfriend, who got me who asked if I would do it, Jane Asher. She was filming down in Bristol, sort of west of England. And when I went round to Paul's house, we went upstairs to his bathroom to cut his hair. Not at the salon. I used to put water in a cup, and pour it over his head. So, you know, this is Paul McCartney. You could afford anything there. And he was just so natural. It really was. He put me at ease, at least, and he wasn't playing the big star. And I did his hair that time. The second time I went round there, I said to him, oh, I haven't seen Jane for a while. She has been in the salon. He said, no, she's filming. Now, don't forget, Paul had just stopped the final concert. Was maybe a month away, a month finished. And I said, oh, are you going to go and are you going to go and visit her at the film set? And he said, no, I can't do that because when I go down there, they take it away from the film, and it's always about Paul, me, the Beatles. So no, I'm not going. And I just said, that's a shame. And I said, when she finishes, will you go on holiday with her, I suppose? He said, no, I've got the same problem. So, okay, I'm doing his hair in the mirror. And I just said to him, what a shame. I said, why don't you go in disguise? I just said, disguise. I don't know if being put a moustache, do this, do that. And at the time, he was unshaven and had a little part he was unshaven in about 4-day growth. And he said, he just looked at me in the mirror and just said, what do you mean? I didn't actually know what I meant, actually. And I said, why don't I cut all your hair off?
Oh, wow.
And he looked at me and he said, go on then, do it. So I said, yes. So I cut Paul McCartney's hair about ½ inch all over. I literally, you talk about taking hair, I could have made a fortune with the hair that fell on the floor. And I'm actually kicking it away. You know, there was a lot of Beatle hair on the floor. And I thought to myself, when it was all over, he didn't sort of go, oh my God, what have you done? He just went, okay, that's great, thanks. Went downstairs with him, and I thought to myself, when I left, what would happen if Brian Epstein gets an offer of so much money that they said to the Beatles, look, we do one more gig, okay? They want us in, let's say, New York next week, and he's got a short haircut, he'll see his hair. Right? That was my little jokey thinking.
Wow. Wow.
And, next thing I saw, 5 weeks later, Paul McCartney coming back. It was a great big picture in the newspaper. McCartney coming back from Nairobi, Kenya, with Jane Asher and Mal Evans, been on a safari holiday, and he got through there disguised. So that was a nice little story that ended up really good. Well, you know, to say to a Beatle, I've got a newspaper cut that says Beatle hairdresser. It said Leslie Cavendish, the man that made Paul a skinhead.
Now I've got a text here from Charles Rosen. Now he said, did Diana tease you or your hair?
She could have, Charles would know better than me, but she certainly teased me. I got a double tease.
Can you believe Jane Mansfield came in? That's unbelievable.
Unbelievable. But she did.
Now, I've got to ask you, when you were in Paul's house, you told me another time, he had the Sergeant Pepper outfit in his room, and then you were talking about a famous painting. We won't even go there, but what I'm trying to say is, living there in Cavendish Avenue, right? And I know I've seen photos of his backyard. He's got a very long backyard for London, hasn't he?
Yes, yeah. It's right next to Lord's. We have a famous cricket ground there, Lord's. Yeah, the Sergeant Pepper uniform was the premiere of the party of the Magical Mystery Tour at the Royal Lancaster Hotel in London. I didn't know when I went round to do their hair that it was fancy dress. And he said to me, "What are you going as tonight?" And, you know, they dressed up as Pearly Queen and King, you know, with pearls. That's what in East London the Cockneys would dress up and parade. It was a yearly parade. And I said, "Oh, I'm not really going in fancy dress." He said, "Well, it's fancy dress." He actually said to me, "Go upstairs and see if there's anything there that you like." Oh, really? Okay. So I went upstairs and there I was. I opened his wardrobe and there was the Sergeant Pepper uniform.
The blue one.
The blue one. And
wow.
I took it off the hanger and I put it on. And I said to myself, "You can't go down to the Magical Mystery in that Sergeant Pepper uniform." But you know what? I know I put it on. And I put it back in the wardrobe, came downstairs, and no, I saw something. And I went in a beautiful crushed mauve velvet suit that we had from Apple Tailoring, which Jimi Hendrix, all his jackets and everything with velvet. So, yeah, that was an interesting little open someone's wardrobe. We got the original Sergeant Pepper.
How did it fit? Did it fit you well?
The epaulets were a bit tight. It just looked, you know, this is Sergeant Pepper there. It's just your head. My head was just going, you know, I was a Beatles fan, you know, and I'm keeping all this in my head. Yeah, these were nice little things there, you know, like if I would have touched sold his hair, I wouldn't have had a chance, would I? You know, to do these things.
Did you, so you toured with them as well? Did you do their hair before?
No, that was before me. The touring, no, because they were going from city to city, studio to studio. You would have at the TV studios, you would have the artist, the makeup artist, the hairdresser. So yeah, there were loads of people that could turn around and say, "I did the Beatles' hair." Yeah, there were loads of people. But when they retired from touring, yeah. I was cutting Paul's hair a lot. Well, I say a lot, as much as he wanted to. And then with that, you had the other Beatles all sort of came in, you know, from George to Paul. Ringo, not so much, because his wife, Barbara, was a hairdresser. A nice lady as well. So, yeah. Yeah.
Which was your favorite to cut? What haircut did you like to do the best?
I like cutting George's hair because I used to do it. I used to dry hair with my fingers. I still do. I don't use a brush. I think you get more of a natural look. And George has always got this long hair. We used to come in. We had a salon. They opened up a salon for me in the King's Road in Chelsea, which was great. So because Paul lived in town, and when there was in meetings in Savile Row, Paul used to, you know, it only took him about 15 minutes to come in, but John, George, and Ringo lived down in the countryside, so they used to come up and used to have his chauffeur drop him outside the salon. He would come downstairs to the basement. He'd come in, have his hair washed, dried, and we used to sit there and we used to have a little chat. It was always about music, and he was telling me that he's learning this instrument, the Indian instrument called a sitar. I didn't even know what he was talking about, a sitar. And I said, "Oh, okay." And, you know, just things like that. It's only when you look back later that, you know, obviously he's with Ravi Shankar, and then, you know, his head is into so many other things, you know, lyric-wise, you know, writing songs which he didn't really have much chance to put down a Beatle album. So, yeah, I really enjoyed it. He was a really peaceful guy as well. There.
Leslie, I got to ask you, you cut George's hair at Abbey Road while he was recording the song Something, that's right?
I don't know if it was something, but there's a very strange. I have a picture. I have a few photos of me cutting George Harrison's hair. I was sure that the picture was taken either at a photo shoot or at the salon. Years later, a guy called Tony Bramwell, who works for the Beatles, told me that he took the photograph at EMI, which was actually before Abbey Road. And I'm trying to work out that it shows you. I must have obviously when I watched the Beatles record, I always had my comb and scissors with me. I always had my hairdressing equipment with me because very rarely I would be asked, but I was on call if somebody wanted to, I don't know. But you never think while someone's recording, they'll decide to go and have their hair cut, would you? I would have thought so anyway. But somewhere along the line, George has either got fed up recording, fed up downstairs, or whatever it is, or just said to himself, I need to get away. And he asked me to cut his hair. And I remember, there was a little space out now when I recall about it. I cut his hair there, and Tony Bramwell took the photos there. So, yeah, that was a very strange thing to have a haircut in the middle of a recording session. I think it was actually doing Sergeant Pepper, Mr. Plastic.
Unbelievable. These stories are unbelievable. And, with the Magical Mystery Tour, Robin, let me tell you, while he's on the tour, they were told to not drive down country little roads, right?
That's right.
So they drove down a little country road to a bridge, and the bus got stuck on the bridge, and it held up traffic both ways for what, 3 hours was it, Leslie?
Yeah, they were supposed to be going to Widdicombe Fair. And I'm telling you, the whole journey was a magical journey because I'm not sure everyone knew what they were doing. It was a sort of, you knew you were going from London down to Cornwall, the south of England. And on the way, they were stopping off and they were improvising. You would have thought that this bridge, and we're being followed by lots of press, you would have thought that someone would have thought, can we get the coach over this bridge to take us to the fair? And the driver is just driving, and next thing he gets stuck on the bridge. He literally gets stuck, he can't go through. So he's had to reverse all the way back. Yeah, it's crazy little things like that were happening. And all being filmed at the same time, that film, I'm not sure that I've seen photographs of it. I'm not sure I've actually seen live film, but I'm sure there is live film because there's films that coming up from that Magical Mystery Tour that, there's the fish and chip shop scene that was cut out of the original movie. That I actually appear a lot in it, which is quite nice. Wow. Really a lot in it. So, they got that footage, and I've seen other footage they haven't used. So, yeah, that was a funny time. Plus, no one thought about it.
It's fun to think about. It's also interesting because people don't think of celebrities as real people. And the way that you're telling these stories really, brings them to life as real people. They're real people who get their hair cuts. They do things. Yeah. Eat fish and chips, even though that was part of the movie, but just like the rest of us. And I think that that's something that interviews like this help bring to light, and you're a very lovely person.
I'll tell you one of the big changes that's happened, why it was like that. Today, let's just go to someone, let's go to U2, for instance, right? Like a big band, fabulous band. You would never get near them. They have an entourage that you couldn't even, you'd have to break down 500 walls to doors to get into them.
Very
was, at Apple, at Savile, the 3 Savile Row there, they had one security guard at the door. They had 2 receptionists. And you could just bluff your way in. You could go, they didn't, they were sort of, I won't say they were open, for everyone to see, but you could walk down the King's Road, for instance, where the shop was. I could see Mick Jagger walking by, Brian Jones walking by. I could see George Harrison walk by there. I'm not saying that people wouldn't stop them and recognise them, but you couldn't do that today. There'll be bodyguards, and unfortunately, you've only got to look at John Lennon, bless him, it's his birthday this week, to see how easy it was for someone to get near someone. That couldn't happen today.
Did they get upset when, I know, like I recently watched an interview with Lady Gaga actually, and she said she physically gets ill if someone comes up to her and takes a picture. It just really stresses her out. Was that something that would upset them, or not really? Or what was the reaction to something like that if a fan would
well, beforehand, no, I think the only thing they were worried about beforehand is whether they get their hair pulled out, you know, or their clothes ripped. I mean, that was their biggest fear. You know, screaming girls, just screaming at them, making them deaf probably, you know, but to be shot or to be injured, I don't think it never happened. You know, you'd get killed in a car crash. You know, that's how you got killed. You wouldn't get killed by a fan or a so-called fan. So, yeah, I think that changed the whole thing when people realised that these people are very vulnerable. So I don't blame them today. But at the time, plenty of time to get near a Beatle if you wanted to.
It's too bad that it has to be that way. You know,
yeah.
Very sad thing.
Yeah, it is. Well, they want to kill presidents, which they did, and they, you know, there are nutters out there that can do things. But there you go.
I just want to ask you, Leslie, if I can, with the Bee Gees, who are you closest to? Who are you a good friend with?
My best mate was Vince Maloney. Your Aussie mate, a lovely guy. He was him and Colin Patterson. He was the drummer. Vince was the lead guitarist, and the three brothers. On the three Bee Gees, I probably met and had the sort of used to go and walk my dog with Barry Gibb dog. He lived up in Eaton Square in Belgravia, and I lived the poorer end of Chelsea. So, but I used to go around to his house and cut his hair. And he used to play the guitar there for me. You know, I got my own little people, you know, requests, you know, private auditions. Little thing. I went there one day, I'll never forget. It was lovely. I used to go around there. Again, you never used to know who would be around these places. And Richie Havens was there. And they started playing Beatles songs there. Amazing. I'm sitting in the corner, little groupie me. There I was.
Did you meet Lulu?
Lulu used to come into the salon, yeah, a lot. I never cut her hair, but I used to wash her hair. The stylist at Vidal's used to go to different stylists, you know, every 3 months. Used to, you know, get used to different people, how they would cut and do hair. And that's how you learn your apprenticeship with this guy, Mark Hilliard. He used to do Dusty Springfield's hair and Lulu's hair. Yeah. Is
it true that if you're a hairdresser, that everybody wants to tell you their life? I believe that when they come there, it's like a therapy. They're cutting their hair, they got no one to talk to, and they tell you everything. That's true, isn't it?
Well, I won't say it's quite like that, but let's put it this way. Who's the closest thing? You know, when a woman comes in at 8:30 in the morning, so what's she done? She's got out of bed, she said goodbye to her husband or her lover, and then she comes in, and the hairdresser is touching her hair. And she is making herself up to look the person that when she leaves with her hair and her makeup. So yeah, sometimes people open up to you, you know, and you don't ask, you wait. That was the secret of Vidal said. Always remember that.
So you have to be a bit of a therapist as well, apart from cutting hair.
Well, yeah, I don't know about being a therapist.
I think you definitely have to. You have a very charming personality, so I'm sure people love haircut.
Yes, I'm sure they did. They always open up to good old Les.
You know something, Robin? Can I say something? I tend to agree with him. You know your hair. Not that you have to listen to me, but I reckon your hair would look great just to your collar. What do you think?
Yeah, it looked lovely. It looked lovely. Honestly, you got a good face.
And you're carrying less too. You got to understand that too. You're carrying less on your head.
I did have it this length once, and maybe it is time. I don't know. Maybe I would need Leslie to do that when the travel bans are lifted. I'll have to do that.
We'll do that.
You might go back to that haircut.
I'll go to London, and I will not ask you for a John Lennon haircut. I promise.
Oh dear.
What about a Ringo cut?
I don't think that would bode too well for me. I actually had sent I sent Plastic a photo altered of the two of us with Beatles haircuts. He said it wasn't a good look for us. So
I look like 120.
You look all right there. You look. Tell me, what's happening down in? Are you all right down there in Melbourne, Australia?
Yeah, we're all right. The curfew stopped, but we still got things where we can't leave our house, go more than 5 kilometres, and all this. But let me tell you, when I get on these interviews, I just forget it. It's like, you know, and I've got to tell you something. Someone sent me a very nice email or message from Liverpool and said, "Thank you so much for the interviews. You don't know how uplifting it is to watch your shows." And that's what makes it for me. Just someone to tell me, "Hey, you know, I'm feeling really up and happy because I'm watching the interviews and I'm enjoying it." That's, you know, that to me is great.
Well, that's what you give. You know, you're the one that's doing it, and you give, and you've got this way about you that makes someone feel like that. I mean, you could go on the aggressive mode if you want to, but that's, you know, you are Plastic as you are.
You can't.
Now, I've got to ask you,
smile and look.
anybody famous come in to see you at Sidell?
At Sidell? Repeat yourself.
Have you seen Bo Derek?
No.
Can I tell you a few beautiful women? Tell me if you've met them.
Yeah, well, you know, you just have to go.
Okay, but I'm going for the ones. I'm going for the ones that I don't think you've
guys.
met.
What about the guys, Plastic?
Now wait a minute. You can ask him. You can ask him about the guys.
Robin,
Bo Derek. You met Bo Derek, didn't you?
No, Robin. I tell you, a guy. Let's look at Robin. Let's make Robin happy. My mother, where everyone used to have the Beatles on their wall, my mother had Tony Curtis on the wall. I get a phone call from his manager that says, "Mr. Curtis is staying at the Dorchester Suite, the presidential suite at the Dorchester Hotel, Park Lane. Mr. Curtis would like you to come up and cut his hair." And I said, "Sure." I put the phone down. I was more excited knowing I was going to cut Tony Curtis's hair, more excited to go and tell my mum what I'm doing. And on top of it, Tony Curtis has got a haircut named after him. You know, the DA. And do you know that what it is? So
I'm not sure I do.
Okay, so when you especially we used to go to the barbers, we used to say, "Can we have a DA, please?" And a DA is when you put the hair back and it's got a crease down the bottom, and DA stands for duck's ass.
Oh, okay.
So everyone had a Tony Curtis. And here's the man, I'm going to go and cut his hair. So I met him. He came over for the premiere of the Boston Strangler film. And he was amazing. He was an amazing guy. And you're talking about beautiful women. You know, if you get Tony Curtis, who's still alive, and ask him what women, he'd run out of numbers. You know,
I love that movie, Houdini. Houdini's a great movie.
He was actually a very good actor, but look at the women that he not only went with and married, but who he starred with. So, yeah, he was.
That must.
You would have liked him, Robin. He looked the way you saw him on the movies. You know.
You know, I think you've arrived when a character on the Flintstones is named after you. He was Stoney Curtis. Remember that, Plastic?
Yeah, that's right. And what about the other one that played in with Elvis in the movie Viva Las Vegas? My favorite, Anne Margaret. She was in the Flintstones too.
I love Anne Margaret.
I love it. I married my wife because she looks like Anne Margaret.
Are you like Elvis? Do you two of you go together?
It's a king.
Looks like Robert De Niro, actually. If he took off his glasses, you'd see it. We've had a big discussion on the show about this. He's a cross between Robert De Niro and Al Lewis from the Munsters.
Let's have a look.
There it is.
Oh, yeah, that's it. That's the man.
You met Bo Derek, didn't you, Leslie?
Oh, no, I didn't meet Bo Derek. No.
She was on a film set with Ringo. Did you go to that film?
No, you got the wrong lady.
Who was it?
Raquel Welch.
Oh, sorry. You met Raquel Walsh, did you?
So
Wow.
the film I went and did Ringo's hair for the Magic Christian.
Yeah, that's it.
So the cast was Raquel Welch, who was like, beautiful. Peter Sellers, John Cleese from
Faulty Towers.
Faulty Towers. Yep.
Monty Python.
Monty Python. Thank you. Brilliant. And Ringo. And Raquel Welch. That was a lady to see. She looked like she looked on the posters.
I saw her in that outfit. It's leather. And she had a whip.
She had a whip, yes, she certainly did.
And what happened is, they had the ladies in the boat scene.
What, on the film?
Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
No, I didn't. I was only there. I didn't see the boat scene.
You need to see some photos of what happens in that scene.
Oh yeah, I wasn't there. I got chucked off the set.
Sorry, you missed the best parts.
Well, I nearly got chucked off the set because
why?
Because there's such a thing called equity, which means you had to be it's basically part of the union. So I was doing Ringo's hair in his dressing room. I then watched him go on stage, on the set. I saw that his hair wasn't quite right. So the moment I went on stage there, they went, cut. And the electricians and the artists went, that's it. And I said, what's wrong? I said, are you a union member? I said, no, off or we call a strike. So I couldn't go on the set. I could watch, but I wasn't allowed to go on the set, which is quite amazing, actually. That's changed now, but that's what it used to be. Very similar to that. If an artist wanted to go to America, they wouldn't do it, and vice versa. You have to have a special, not the green card, but they used to think the thing, if an American can't do it, then, why bring an English person over to do it when an American do it? And vice versa. It was vice versa. Thank God those days have changed. So that was an interesting setup.
Yeah, we went back into time.
Yeah.
And Robin and I were there with you in the swinging 60s, let's say, and you took us for a walk down Carnaby Street, right, when it was at its height, like Austin Powers' time. Is it like the movie?
Is it like the movie? Yeah, it was, but it wasn't. I wouldn't take you on a walk down there. But
why?
Because it all got commercial. It all got very good. We had 6 months of when, great American group, I think American or maybe Australian, the Walker Brothers. You never heard the most fantastic three guys there. They would go down, the Who would go down there and buy their clothes in the shop there until it got commercial. And then everyone moved down to the King's Road or whatever. So, yeah, I would take you down there. You would fit the parts because you look like it. You look like you would blend in very easy there.
Robin, she'd look all right in one of those military jackets.
Same hair. She would have, wore those white boots.
Yeah, military jacket.
The white boots.
Yeah.
I would like that.
Yeah.
That could be a whole new look for me. Maybe I should start wearing them now.
No, I was trying to get plastic first into the white boots, and then we'll see. Maybe we'll all wear white boots next time I see you.
Yeah, but Robin, what kind of jacket would you like?
That's a great question. I don't know. What do you think would be good for me, Plastic?
You can get a military jacket, but let's ask Leslie because he
just took the words out of my mouth. I would say a military jacket with Courage, dressed like Courage, the French designer, the Vidal haircut. Wow, you would be having your photograph taken all the time down the swing in London there. Yeah, Plastic. You'd have to just look after her.
It would be.
Wow. Can you imagine yourself down there and Austin Powers comes down as well?
He loves his Austin Powers. You love him.
I love those movies. I just love them. Don't you love them too, Robin?
I love them. Exactly. Fun. We need fun. You said it.
What about the film Blow Up? You seen the film Blow Up with David Hemming?
I've seen it. That's the one that's got all the groups in it.
Well, there you go. It's fabulous. That was based on David Bailey, the photographer, roughly. And you talk about Austin Powers. Just watch that film Blow Up. It's fabulous. Absolutely fabulous. David Hemming starts with it.
Leslie, did you get asked to go on any movies?
Go on in the movies?
Yeah, like those 60s movies, you know, when they had the groups on and they asked you, can you come because you look like a model and come and be in the film?
Most of the time a model, not a model. I used to go with the Bee Gees to Top of the Pops. They used to record it and they used to mime. So it used to be a Thursday night in England where they would mime. They would do the show on the Wednesday and then they would mime it on the Thursday. And I used to do their hair and watch the girls in the audience and literally screaming and but never was allowed to go on stage because that's not my job.
What a scene, man. You're in the scene.
Oh, lovely.
It's so interesting, all of the screaming. I don't think I've ever been anywhere where I've screamed because I've, seen someone. I don't know. I've never been in that situation. Maybe that was more of a, 60s thing. You see it on TV. Obviously, I was born in 1968, so I can't say from firsthand experience, but it is interesting to watch.
Who was the people that the bands or artists that you liked, Robin, when you grew up as a teenager?
Oh, I definitely loved the Beatles for sure. Definitely, I probably had a little crush on Paul McCartney for a while, just like everybody did. Mm-hmm. Let's see. It's interesting because as a child, I watched the Monkees, and then later in life, I ended up working for one of them. But that was probably fun for me. But I definitely admired like the Beatles and the Rolling Stones. And
I think you missed the screaming era because
I did.
Because this was, for instance, I left school at 15. Okay, you couldn't do that today. So you get people who are 15, 16-year-old girls, 14, 12, 13, 14, seeing really young people, really young from the early days. So maybe, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, these guys, you get these girls and they're screaming because they've been let out. They weren't studying. I'm not saying, going to university. So a lot of people just left school and they saw their idols, they were into the music and they started screaming. It's, you just got to look at New York, Shea Stadium. That's why the Beatles stopped touring, because of that. Why were the girls screaming like mad? And, at the airports, they would scream really. That's amazing scenes.
It must have been something like, I remember Peter Tork of the Monkees talking, I worked for him and he would talk about the screaming and the running away from the girls kind of thing. Although I don't know how much they necessarily wanted to run away from the girls at that time, but late, even in 2011, I was in the UK for the Monkees tour. We toured around England.
Okay. Was that with Mickey Dolenz?
Yes. Yeah. And Davy. Davy was alive then.
Yes, yeah. Did you meet up with Paul McCartney? He was friendly with Paul, wasn't he, Mickey Dolenz?
I don't believe that he reached out to him. No, not to my knowledge anyway. Right. On that trip, I remember Peter telling me a story about meeting the Beatles for the first time, and I think it was John Lennon. Correct me if I'm wrong, Plastic. You may have heard this before. I think it was John Lennon who called over to one of the Monkees. It may have even been Peter and said, "Hey, Monkey Man." Yeah,
that's right. That was John.
Talked to him that way. So I kind of remember they were in awe meeting the Beatles, as the Monkees at that time. Which, of course, I would probably be in awe as well if I met.
Yeah, well, they were being promoted as the American Beatles at one stage, weren't they?
But Brian Epstein helped when they came over to tour in England. He had something to do with it, but also the Monkees became friends with certain Beatles. Like, for example, Peter became a very good friend of George and played banjo on Wonderwall, his album or whatever it was.
Yes, I remember that.
a television commercial too. There was a TV commercial.
Pizza.
Remember that plastic? Yeah.
Yeah, with Ringo.
Right.
Pizza Hut.
Yeah. Was it Doritos? What was that for?
No, it was Pizza Hut, and Ringo's on the drum, and the three monkeys are there, Peter, Davey, and Mickey, and the caption was something, right person but wrong band or something.
Yeah, it was funny. I'll have to look that up later, but definitely interesting times. I know Plastic, before, I know you're probably busy, Leslie, and we don't want to keep you too long.
Okay.
I had a trivia question for you, I believe.
Okay,
Yeah.
before we go,
I'm gonna have you, Leslie and Robin, on my trivia show if we can arrange a time. Not now, but if you're free too, Robin, you're welcome. And I'll just ask you a couple of questions.
Leslie. Leslie's a good person. I'm glad that Leslie was on the show today.
Yeah,
Leslie's a great person. And let me tell you, I'll just ask you a couple of Beatle questions, right?
Yeah.
Just to see how you go. And if you know the answer, just say the answer.
Okay.
Paul McCartney played the bass, left or right-handed?
Left.
Yeah, that's right. Well done.
I had a 50 shot and I didn't even try. Okay.
Now, on Abbey Road, who crosses the crossing first? Which Beatle?
Lennon.
That's right. He knows them.
I even have a picture. I spent one day in that area and I never got to see any of the sights, but my daughter has, of course, the picture of herself as one of the Beatles crossing the street. Okay. I got it. I didn't get it. I'm 0 for 2. This isn't
Doesn't matter. I got one more.
Robin, I'll ask a question. Right? How many Beatles were there?
You know. That's right.
Right. So you got one. Perfect.
I like Leslie. See, he's trying to include me and make me feel good.
Yes.
Yeah, but I didn't answer on purpose.
Come on, last question, Mr. Plastic. Where's the question? I'll give you, okay. Here's a question. What name did Paul McCartney write a song for Peter and Gordon? I think it was called Woman.
Yeah, that's right. But do you want to know what name he used? Bernard Webb.
Correct. There you go.
You are the trivia king.
I also got another question. Last one for you both. What album was recorded last? Not released. What album was recorded last?
Recorded last.
Okay. Abbey Road?
That's right. Because the story is, Robin, that they recorded Let It Be but didn't release it. Then they did Abbey Road. Then they released Abbey Road. And then they released Let It Be. Anyway, as I want to say, what a fantastic show we've had. I just want to show you one more time, if I may. That's the book, The Cutting Edge by Leslie Cavendish. And we also got a Spanish version. And the best place to get it from, can they get it direct from you, Leslie?
Yes, there's somebody just message me on Facebook or go on my website and get it direct from me, and I'll do a signed copy to whoever.
I want one. I'm going to order one. So count me in.
Will do.
Well, what we do is we'll say goodbye to everybody out there and just stay there. So anything else you'd like to ask, Robin, before we go?
I really hope that you would join us again sometime, because this has been a lot of fun, Leslie. I really.
Thank you. You made it a lot of fun as well, both of you. So thank you.
All right, from everybody out there, it's goodbye from Plastic EP and
Robin
and
Leslie. Bye.
See you guys. Bye.